talking about leadership and sexuality. I think these are winner of topics personally. And you know where I'm coming from with this. It's all about like the spiritual alpha way. So, surprise, if you're on my email list, then you got this heads up that I was going live. If you don't get those emails, what? What are you doing with your life? Get those emails. And you're like, Arica, how do I get those emails? How do I know the inside secrets of Arica Angelo? Well, you get my free course, Become the Damn Hero. It's on my website, aricaangelo.com. So, guys, I've been talking a lot about this whole spiritual alpha, and I was having a conversation with my dear friend Dawn, who we just did a recent video together about the subconscious. And she was asking me about the spiritual alpha stuff. And I said, and we were talking about it. And I said, but you know, sexuality is a big part of this. And I don't know, like, let's think of like times of leadership where somehow sexuality always creeps its way in, right? There's like this dynamic between power and sex. So like, we're going to give a bad example here, but I mean, I'm polarizing. Let's just talk about things that are just things that are naughty, right? So sexuality and leadership. What's the first scenario that comes to the top of your mind? Ahmed from Egypt. Oh my goodness, this is so cool, Ahmed. Thank you for writing in. I just finished watching the Cleopatra series and I'm like, man, I have got to get to Egypt. There is like an energy there. I've got to come to Egypt, Ahmed. I must come. I'm very fascinated by Cleopatra. Speaking of sexuality and leadership, I mean, she's like a pretty damn good example of that. But so when you think of, if you're in America, we would think of what? I'm going to call out the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky scandal. And what was that? Like this high power guy, he's president of the United States, and he starts sleeping with his intern. What's the famous line? Who knows the famous line? Put it in the chat. What's the famous line? Thank you, Ahmed. I definitely do want to come out there. The famous line is, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. We're like, and then he gets back on the sand. He's like, I had sexual relations with that woman. But there is something about this that I think that has been very taboo, which is, you know, like we kind of separate them, leadership and sexuality. But to me, this is a big part of being the spiritual alpha, is understanding that the two go together. That I think that men, I think that with anybody, like I feel like, I'm not even gonna say men, I'm saying people in general, but predominantly a lot of men have been targeted with this. It's like this shame around sexuality, and now women are starting to embrace more of their sexuality, more in the West. I would imagine like in Egypt and other places, it's like, no, it's in Europe, sexuality's been really embraced, but in the States, it's been a bit, you know, polarized. You know, you can call it through religion, things like that. But the two they're very important. And the reason why is sexuality is really connected to our identity. It is part of our life force. And if you think about it, like the whole premise of you, oh, that's a good, hi, Mr. Who's the Best. So what's this channel about? That's so cool that it just popped up and you don't know what my channel is. That's really cool. Hey, Thomas. So this channel is about relationships, sex, leadership. That's what it's about. Hey, what up, my high commander? So sex has been really demonized, but the reality is like, look at everything of why we are here. We came into this world through the act of sex. That is the beginning of all creation. And somehow in this Western world, we've separated the two. We've made like our identity, we've made leadership, our purpose, the things that we do completely separate from sex. And we're not really talking about how to marry the two together. And so the reality is that the spiritual alpha, he or she understands that sexuality is his or her right, their birthright, their inheritance, but it essentially is their life force. Like, this is what we create out of. Now, men and women may create very differently. You hear a lot about men with like semen retention so that they can hold their power, whereas women, it's very different. We can come like a million times, and probably, I mean, thankfully our womb could only hold like one child. Otherwise we'd like always be pregnant with the amount of times that a woman can orgasm. But there's some real power to this when we talk about leadership and sexuality. Like, one, there's been that saying, like, women love men who are in a position of power. Like, it turns women on. Like, even a guy who is, maybe not the best looking guy, but if he's in a place of power, then all of a sudden that guy becomes really sexy to a woman when a guy is in power. And so you might be watching this, whether you're a man or you're a woman, you might be watching this and thinking like, well, Arica, I don't, oh, wow, Ahmed, it's forbidden to talk about sex in Egypt? That's crazy. Like, the whole Isis and Cleopatra, like, that was all sex related. That's fascinating. I would love to know more about this. Shoot me an email. I want to hear more about this. I'm at erica@aricaangelo.com. I want to hear more about why it's kind of forbidden. But you might be watching this and you're like, Arica, I have no drive to become the next president of the United States. But this is something a little bit deeper, because I believe that we're all born to be leaders in our own right, which is what I'm calling the spiritual alpha, right? It's like, whether you want to be the president or whether you're showing up in your community as a leader, that is who you are meant to be in this world, is that person who leads from the inside out, who knows who they are, who trusts who they are, who uses their voice. And as a result, people find that crazy attractive, crazy sexually attractive, a person who's standing in their power. I'll give you a perfect example of this. I've seen this a lot with clients. I've had clients and people I've worked with that their partners, we're talking about men clients that I've had, where the women like left their husbands. Either they cheated on them, they had an affair, and they just like straight up left the guy. But after we would work together and I would get him in touch with his spiritual alpha, I'd get him in touch with his emotional warrior, and then he would like have experiences. I'm like, no, this is how you do it in life. Like, you got to speak up for yourself here. You got to start dressing better to represent yourself better as a leader. You need to speak up for yourself sexually. Like, if you're into someone, also guys, please hit that like button. It will really help me. I see one person's liked it, but there's 35 people here. Please hit that like button. That will really help me with YouTube. So when the guy got his power back, guess what? All of a sudden, like, the woman that he was with, that in the past that left him, all of a sudden she starts finding him like really attractive. Why? Because he came back to his identity. He started taking back his life force, which I believe why this is such a huge mission to silence men sexually. Why there's so much of the Me Too, which there's some truth to that movement. But also I believe that the reason why men are being silenced with their sexuality is to stop them from being powerful, to take them away from their life force. And you see women becoming more masculine and more open about their sexuality and moving forward with their sexuality, which is really beautiful, but we're being taught to do it from a very masculine place. And so it's like, we need to have that marriage of it coming back together, where women are still very sexual beings, but from a very feminine place, that's still spiritual alpha, who allows herself to enjoy her sexuality, to be her sexuality, but can still be the inner leader without needing to dominate men, without demonizing men, without needing to control men. And the same thing with men. It's like, men have been so neutered in the fact that it's like, you shouldn't trust yourself, is essentially what it's saying. Here's a problem and why leadership and sexuality go together. Because essentially, when that gets taken away, you stop trusting yourself. When you can't feel your energetic flow, when you can't feel that natural sexual energy that flows you, and when that gets prohibited, when that gets taken away from you, that's your power. That's that ability of you being able to create. We create one with our words, we create with our words, we create with our thoughts, and we're inundated with that, but we're not really talking about that powerful force of creating through sexuality. And so it's my heart to like give you guys permission, give you women permission to go, we got to come back to this life force that we all carry in our sexuality without the shame, without the punishment. Because anytime someone shames us about our sexuality or we start getting punished about that, it always comes from a spirit of control. And normally there's religion, there's politics, there's always something involved, a darker sense behind the scenes, because if they can control your sexuality, then they can control you. And so it's coming back to that ability to be able to create and lead from that place. But when you have thoughts of being punished for it, which is why I think a lot of guys become nice guys, is because they've been punished in their sexuality. They've been taught it's naughty, it's dirty, you shouldn't be this way. They get taught this from their mothers, and then they become men who have been so neutered from that force of power that they carry on the inside of them, that when they have to show up in the real world with women, they're just like, shit, what do I do? What do I do? And so this is why me talking about this spiritual alpha is so important, because for me, it's important to get people's power back into their hands, to get their freedom back into their hands by giving them that sense of permission. And so in the spiritual alpha experience, you can join for like as a member once a month, or you can join for the year-long mentorship. But what I am creating in these communities for men and women who are spiritual alphas is creating an experience for you to live that out. Because I don't think it's enough for you to just watch a video and then go back to your life and live life doing the same thing that you do every day in, day out. When you do that, you just keep having the same life. Nothing in your life ever changes. But we have to have that catalyst moment where we start having new experiences so that we can actually have that training of like, okay, this is how I live as a spiritual alpha. This is how I combine my leadership with my sexuality, allowing the two to merge together, giving yourself permission for those two worlds to collide and to come into union. Is this making sense for you guys? If it is, let me know. If it's not, let me know also. So as a spiritual alpha, when I'm working with people in this year-long mentorship, it's not just about like giving trainings like this stuff is great, but it's creating a container for you to show up as a leader. Like it's every week we meet together, and one of the weeks that we meet together, one of my spiritual alphas actually leads us into a training. And it's like, you've got to get that experience. It's like if you imagine teaching a child about riding a bike, you can show them YouTube videos about riding that bike. You can even buy them a bike. But until the child gets on the bike and starts riding and has those experiences and maybe falls or loses their balance, they're never actually going to learn. And that's why it's so important for me to get you guys, not just here on YouTube, but to get you off of YouTube and in these containers where we're creating experiences so that this becomes a part of your life. It's not just about getting information. It's about having the actual capacity to be able to do these things in your life, because nothing ever changes until you actually apply it to your life. And so you might be watching this and going, okay, Arica, how do I show up with my leadership and my sexuality? How do I actually do that? And the first thing, I believe that everything always starts with having permission. You have to feel like you have permission to have both. And so obviously I can't go as deep as I would like to here, because it is a little graphic, some of the things that I would encourage you to do. And that's another reason why I've created these containers, the Spiritual Alpha monthly membership, and then the year-long program, because it is quite graphic. I'm saying like sexual things that you should do. And I can't talk about that stuff as much as I'd like to here on YouTube. So I've also created those containers for that. You can join them on my website, aricaangelo.com. But one thing that you have to start doing is understanding that you have permission. And so right here, right now, I want you, if you can, like close your eyes right now, and I just want to speak to your heart, speak to your identity, speak to your mind, and say, you have permission to be the leader of your life. You have permission. In fact, it is your God-given right. And the next thing that you have permission with, my darling, is your sexuality, your life force. I need you to know, and I'm speaking to your heart right now, I'm bypassing the logic, I'm bypassing all of the stories you've been told. You have permission to not only own your sexuality, but to embrace it. And so right now, I just give you permission to come into connection back into your spirituality, that you quit pushing it away, that you don't just run to porn and to the side of sexuality that brings you shame. But I'm talking about, as a spiritual alpha, owning that side of your sexuality that is powerful, that is raw, that is beautiful, that is holy. You have permission to come back to that place of your sexuality. And I want you to ask yourself a very logical question after me saying this to your heart. How have you been turning off your sexuality? Because I promise you, if you're turning off your sexuality, you're also turning off your true leadership. Because there's a full spectrum of how you can be leading and showing up in this world. But if your sexuality is turned off, then there's that full spectrum, like the full colors of the rainbow, that you're not experiencing in how you show up in this world as a leader. As a leader, first and foremost, of your own life, the leader in your workplace, the leader in your community, the leader in your family. Believe it or not, your sexuality plays a big role in that. And I think that that's what makes sometimes really bad leaders are people who have shame. And now I'm going a little deep here, but people who have shame around their sexuality, I find them to be terrible leaders. And the reason why is if there's shame with their sexuality, they're typically partnering with judgment. And I see this a lot. I've shared with you guys, I've grown up in the church, and I saw it a lot in the church. It was like the ministers who were really like demonizing sexuality and anything with sexuality. If you just stayed with them for over a course of years, you would see that they actually had some real dark secrets, some skeletons in the closet regarding sexuality. So they would come across as really holy and pure and this and that, but then you would learn behind the closet, maybe there was history of sexual abuse, maybe they are sexual abusers, maybe they're pedophilers, maybe they're addicted to pornography. There's those dark dynamics that they haven't worked through. And so there's so much shame. And so they try to rectify that by being these like leaders on pedestals. But the reality is, if we have sexual shame, that there are opportunities to heal that, not run from that. But we need the two to come together. They have to merge together. That is part of who we are, is our sexuality. If it were not important, then I assure you that God would not have based all of creation in terms of human beings being on this planet through sex. If it were not important, he would have just said, oh, you just speak it out and a person is brought into this world. No, there's the actual act of consummation of intercourse where a vagina and a penis is combined and they're needed to be able to bring a human being. If God saw it so important to create this act, I think we need to start paying more attention to it and asking bigger and deeper questions around it. And how does it tie into our identity? How does it tie into our leadership? So if you're like, Erica, I want some experience. I want to create that spiritual alpha dynamic in my own life. I want to start leading. I want to embrace my sexuality with my identity, with my leadership. I want to be able to have some real experiences, not just watching YouTube videos, but I actually want to like feel what that tastes like. Then I encourage you, go to my website. I'll try to put the links in the comment section after this video is finished. But if you go to aricaangelo.com, I have the Spiritual Alpha members. It's $24 a month. And I would love to have you in that container because we do have a live element. So I get to talk to you guys live and ask your questions live with videos on in real time. You can turn your camera off if you're shy. But if you're that person, you're like, whoa, this whole thing about like a year-long mentorship and I get to like show up and lead in the group and I get to work with you every week, Erica, in that container. And what happens is it actually accelerates people. It's a year-long container because I offer support, but the transformations start happening really fast within month one. So if that is something you're like, I would love to have a container with other people that I get to show up and actually lead and you bring in top experts to like guide us through these experiences, please be sure to join the Spiritual Alpha. It's under my coaching section. It's at the very bottom. If you go to aricaangelo.com coaching, you'll see in the coaching section, there's several options to work with me, but it's called the Spiritual Alpha Mentorship, and that's for a year long. So if that really speaks to you, I highly encourage you to join right away. It will change your life. So I would love to know if this resonated with you. And if you have some questions about this, please drop those questions. Like, that's what I'm here for. I know sometimes these kind of topics can bring a lot of insecurity and timidity, but there's no wrong, stupid, embarrassing question. I remember having a mentor teach me that. He was like, I would get so embarrassed. He was training me in real estate, and I would get so embarrassed to ask questions. And I would be like, and so I would always preface it by saying, I know this is a stupid question. And he would just stop me and he would say, Erica, there is no stupid question. And so if you're watching this and it's bringing up questions for you or some buttons for you, please, ask those questions. That's what I'm here for, is to support you guys, to guide you guys. But if you like really want to get into it, you want to like really get some real answers and some real experience with this, not just information, but actual experience, be sure to join that membership. It's $24 a month. It's at aricaangelo.com. Guys, I love you so much. And I love doing these type of live videos. I haven't done them in a really long time. And I just like this vertical position that YouTube is starting to offer. It's easier as a creator when I'm doing everything else as an entrepreneur. It's so easy to jump in just like this and be able to share with you guys. But just know that you're so loved and that this is a place where you can come, not just to get, information, but to really be championed, to really get that acceleration in your life so that you can have the love that you want, so that you can be the leader that you were meant to be, and to be able to create a container where you can have that sexual relationship with the love of your life as you guys continue to co-create in the bedroom, in that holy place together where all things can be birthed and made new. So I would love to help get you there on that journey. So thank you for being here. I will see you guys soon. Yeah, Thomas, thank you for saying that, Thomas. Thomas is one of my Spiritual Alpha members. And that is going to be the topic. So Thomas, if you have questions, bring it in that group because we are going for it. In fact, I'm going to send you guys an email asking you questions, what questions you may have about it. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. This is really cool to do this. And I will see you in my next video. I'm just trying to figure out how to end this. All right, guys, love you. Have a good weekend. And By the way, I do have a new video coming out this Sunday. It's a little intense. It's about lying. It's confrontational, but I think at the end of it, it will bring you a lot of freedom. So, new video coming out this Sunday. I love you guys, and I'll see you soon. Hopefully, you'll be in that spiritual alpha group, because we have a training, this type of training about this, coming out on Monday, 4 p.m. Paris time. So I hope you get to join it. Go to my website to join. Love you. Bye.